cabinet members exempt from load shedding? Now, there have been concerns following reports that Bryntirion Estate, which is a Pretoria suburb, which is where the official residences of many cabinet members are located, is exempt from load shedding. The concern first emerged in 2014 when media reports alleged that two neighbourhoods in the country, Bryntirion Estate in Pretoria and the parliamentary village of Acacia in Cape Town, did not experience load shedding. Now, this has become a bone of contention given the growing mistrust between government and the citizenry. And joining us for this discussion are Daryl Johnston, who is the City of Tshwane MMC for Utility Services, as well as the DA's Shadow Minister of Public Enterprises, Ghaleb Cachalia, who joins us on the phone. Gentlemen, thanks so much for joining us this morning. Welcome to it. And Ghaleb, if I could start with you. You recently wrote a scathing statement in which you expressed concern at the fact that Bryntirion Estate, which is where the official residences of cabinet members are located, is exempt from load shedding while hospitals are not. So please just elaborate on that and the concern that you have.
My colleague, the Minister, Shadow Minister for Health, did oversight of the number, as she does, of a number of hospitals, and called me and said that she is disturbed that hospitals do not have, are not exempt from load shedding. And when it came to our attention that certain parliamentary, high-up parliamentary people are exempt, appear to be exempt from load shedding, this was a cause for concern. So we flagged it, and indeed I subsequently wrote to NERSA to ensure that hospitals are provided with the requisite electricity and exemption from load shedding, because lives are important.
So if I can just come to you, Daryl Johnston, what does the City of Tshwane has to say to this matter? Is it true? Is Bryntirion Estate exempt from load shedding?
Morning. Yes, as you rightly indicated in your introduction, load shedding is guided by the NRS 048 Part 9, which is a national regulation, and Section 8.5 stipulates that both National Parliament and the union buildings would be exempted from load shedding. So that's what guides that. And in terms of its proximity, Bryntirion is adjacent essentially to the union buildings, and as a result of being on the same feed to the union buildings, the benefit to them is that they are not load shed.
So just to make it clear, when we talk about a parliament and the parliamentary precinct and the union buildings and that precinct, does it expressly include those two residential villages?
The NRS 048 doesn't specifically include those, but it's just by virtue of the fact of how the power is reticulated to the union buildings, and I can't speak for the effects within the parliamentary precinct and what is and isn't affected there. But certainly on Tshwane side, because of the proximity of the Bryntirion Estate to the union buildings, they benefit from being on the same line that feeds the union buildings.
So, Daryl, in 2014, when this matter first came to light, it was reported at the time that the reason that the Tshwane Metro gave was that Bryntirion Estate cannot be load-shedded because of low voltage and that it can't be switched on and off remotely. So, how does that explanation from 2014 square with the explanation that you're giving us now?
I'm not aware of that explanation at all. My understanding is it's purely based on the fact that Bryntirion is on the same substation, and that substation is switched on and switched off as part of, should be load shed under normal circumstances. But because of the union buildings being fed from that substation remains on.
Ghaleb Cachalia, just with regard to your investigation in terms of whether this is in fact in line with the rules, regulations and stipulations, what have you found?
Well, look, Daryl would know what he's talking about vis-a-vis Pretoria. You mentioned Acacia Park. I don't know about Acacia Park, and that is very far from Parliament. It's essentially city almost, so it's a considerable distance, and that resides in Cape Town, and I don't know what the situation is there. I can tell you, however, I have a flat. I don't live in the parliamentary village. I have a flat in Cape Town, which is almost adjacent to Parliament, and that, for some reason, appears. I'm not there all the time because of this situation with COVID and post-COVID that we find ourselves in, but that's often not load shared. So there may be some exemption in terms of proximity. However, there are two issues here. If ministers in government are exempt from load shedding, and it's not because of their proximity to Parliament or the union buildings, then that is a cause for concern, because the rest of us, including hospitals, are, and that we will continue to look at, to investigate, and to hold to account. If the facts of the matter are, as they appear to be, that it's difficult to load shed because of the way the electricity is transmitted and reticulated in an area, and if you fall within an area and the house next door or the place next door is adjacent and part of the exemption, if you like, then then that's completely understandable. However, if somebody lives extremely distant from any of these points and they do have electricity, then, as I said, we will continue to investigate and hold people to account. And I will ask not only NERSA, but to ensure that hospitals in particular are granted electricity exemption from load shedding. But I will write to Eskom and speak to Andre de Ruyter and say, Mr. de Ruyter, is it true that X has electricity when Y doesn't? And that needs to be answered.
So just from the city's perspective now, Daryl Johnston, when it comes to certain places, certain residences having electricity when the rest of us are being load-shedded, are there any such, quite apart from the Bryntirion Estate and the union buildings, that you are aware of currently?
Look, there might be certain places that are adjacent again to other areas that have been exempted. So we have certain locations through application that allows for exemption because they are critical loads, and that is also dealt with in NRS 048 Part 9, and there's an entire process that has to be undertaken for that. And you may find that there are pockets here and there where because of, again, proximity to the substation that is feeding that area, that, again, there's a beneficiary here and there. And it's purely down to the reticulation system. And, the fact is that your electricity networks have not been designed for load shedding. They've been designed for efficient and effective delivery of electricity. Something, unfortunately, Eskom's not capable of, and that's why we find ourselves in the situation that we do.
So I've heard quite often, and anecdotally so, that depending on where you live, if you live in close proximity to certain people, like the president, like certain ministers, that people in certain areas claim that they are not load-shedded. I remember from a few years back, I worked with someone who lived at the time in close proximity to Saxon World, and they never had load shedding. We would brush in here every morning complaining about load shedding, and there was never load shedding there. So how does that happen?
Well, that I can't speak to. That's City of Johannesburg and outside our municipality. So I'm really not certain what happens there and can't speak to that.
So are you saying that doesn't happen at all in the City of Tshwane? There's
No, I
no
haven't
such
said that.
case.
So what I said earlier is that there are certain places that have been exempted through an exemption process because they are considered critical loads. And so adjacent areas may benefit from that, and even somewhere adjacent to Bryntirion, so possibly Colburn. If you have a look at Colburn, you might find a pocket in Colburn, again, because it's on the same feed from the same substation as the Union buildings, Bryntirion, etc., that you will get a handful of people that are benefiting from that, because there's no way of eliminating them from the rest of the feed that is feeding the Union buildings. And it's therefore required to stay on as stipulated in 8.5 of NRS 048 Part 9.
So, Ghaleb Cachalia, is that fair, given that we are all supposed to be equal here? Because from our understanding, only 2 properties are specifically named when it comes to a standard exemption. That is, of course, the Union buildings and the parliamentary buildings. So, is this fair on other citizens?
I do not understand how the reticulation of electricity works in terms of substations and what needs to be exempt from there to allow the efficient transmission thereof. I will look into that. That is a reasonably technical area that I am unaware of, and if it exists, then we'll have to look into it. However, as I said before, and as you asked, and said that it's unfair. Yes, if to put it boldly, if ministers and high up officials' lights are being kept on, while the rest of our lights are being switched off, then that is patently unfair. And that must end forthwith.
So, Daryl Johnston, just in terms of that process that you spoke about, who decides, who gives the ultimate authorization on whether a certain residence, building or area should be exempt from load shedding?
That authority rests with Eskom.
So we need to find out from Eskom. And would you be able to just check for us in the city of Tshwane exactly which areas and those who have applied for exemption are? Because we would love to know as the South African public.
Sure.
All right, and then we'll come back to that. But just a final parting shot from you, Daryl Johnston.
No, look, the fact of the matter is that we sit in a very difficult situation because we don't have electricity. And unfortunately, the stable and reliable supply of electricity is problematic because Eskom can't deliver. And ultimately, we as cities need to be looking at alternative supplies of electricity so that we can ensure that our residents receive the sort of services that they've come to expect over all the years of stable electricity supply.
Ghaleb Cachalia, your parting shot?
I will follow up with Eskom. That is my responsibility. I will follow up with Eskom and I will ask difficult questions so that the country is in the know about who gets electricity and who doesn't.
And I think that's where we'll leave it for this morning. Very important, critical, given the perceptions that exist, that some of us indeed are once more equal than others. Why should some be dumped into hours of darkness a day while others are exempt from it? And what are those good reasons that would have them exempt from load shedding like the rest of us? So Daryl Johnston, from the City of Tshwane, he's the MMC for Utility Services. He is going to check for us exactly who, where in Tshwane is exempt and what are the reasons for that. And we'll come back to this and he will give us a further explanation on that. And the DA's Ghaleb Cachalia also joining us for that conversation. He's going to follow up with Eskom as well. So we will come back to this conversation.